Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid podcast. My God, I think they're going to kick us out of the hotel. That was incredible energy. Listen, guys, we are live in Miami. For those of you who are with us on YouTube, welcome. What an honor for me to be here in the presence of you guys today. I've met a lot of you guys before the recording. Some of you guys I've met for the second time, which is amazing to see. Um, I love Miami. Special place in my heart. Real Madrid come here often, which is nice, and it's a special place just by default because it hosted the very first game of the Xabi Alonso era. So we hit a milestone with Xabi, not exactly what we wanted it to be, but nonetheless, we got I think a lot to look forward to. I'll give you guys my quick thoughts of just being here in Miami, and I want to hear from you guys too. My experience in Miami so far this week has been kind of just taking in a lot of the good energy of just being around the team. Starting with the training session on Tuesday, where that was my first glimpse of seeing Xabi Alonso in person and doing his thing. I think, and in my opinion, Ancelotti, and I think you guys would all agree, is one of the greatest managers ever. But I just will tell you, like, for better or worse, it is a different kind of vibe now. And I've attended many Ancelotti training sessions, and the intensity, I think, was just a different level in Miami. Come on in, come on in. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Yes, we hopefully are getting more chairs, but please come on in. Hey, hi, how you doing? Oh my God, thank God that we made noise before this little guy came in. Welcome, welcome. Um, the intensity of the Xabi Alonso training sessions were just kind of a sight to behold. And it was really cool to see him just do his thing, shouting and pointing. And I think one of the coolest things is that if you guys remember Zinedine Zidane, the aura he had in the training sessions as a player, right? He comes in and he's juggling with the team, he's doing the drills with the team, he's involved. It's almost just like he's a player, he's an extension of the team, but a manager version of that. That's what Xabi Alonso is. And you can see the respect that the players have for him. It's something that I think is really powerful to see your manager be so involved in the training sessions and be so vocal. And now you see the videos coming out of like his like long diagonal passes, his passing in the it's incredible. Like his technique, it's all still there, right? And I think that goes a long way with the players. And look, I know a lot of you guys were at the game on Wednesday. I was at the game. I know there was a lot of hype behind Xabi Alonso. We were so excited. There was so much excitement and hype going into it. Like all these questions we had about how he'll play, and a different brand of football, the pressing, the build-up play. We get to see Trent and Dean Howson, and I know we kind of all left the stadium kind of feeling, you know, I'm I don't know how you guys feel. I felt that there was quite a bit of overreaction to the way Real Madrid play. And I kind of understand that it is on the back of months and months of disappointment, disappointment, disappointment. And I think that kind of builds up. I think if this was just one game in isolation, where it's the first game of the season, it's 90 million degrees outside, um, there are new players, it's a new manager, it would make sense that it doesn't fire right away after the first game, right? I think part of it was that Madridistas were just waiting for something to cheer about, to see a new era of football. And the reality is, it's just going to take time. I think we saw progress from the first to second half. I think we're going to see progress on Sunday. I think we're going to see progress in Philadelphia, and I think we're going to see progress game to game. That's the way I would predict it to go. I think that this, keep in mind that Xabi Alonso is just a completely different ideology to what Ancelotti is. And when you come in and you need a bunch of time to implement a radically different system, it's not going to be overnight. Courtois had a great quote after the game. I don't know if you guys saw, where it actually, curious, in Spanish, he said automatisms. What does that actually directly translate to? Do you know? Yeah, so it's like a habit, like instinctual, like yeah. Yeah. And so what he was saying was that in 4 days, we can't just rewrite all of that. Like we have all of that instilled in us still. And it has been 4 days. It seems like months, but it hasn't. Again, you factor in when everybody arrived in Miami with Xabi Alonso, it was this last weekend, right? So I think there was a training session on Sunday or Monday, I can't remember. And that's how much time they've had. So think about how crazy it is that we would expect, like, you know, this incredible different style of football that would be successful right away. 4 days. There's going to be a lot. It's hot. New players, new systems, players still trying to find their feet. So we're going to get into all that. I do see a question from Diego. Yeah, go for it. I guess my question would be how much would we care about that in like where in 4 years where will Xabi Alonso be and where will Simeone Inzaghi be? Like I guess I understand the point, but also what does it really mean? Like in the grand scheme of things, by the end of the year, like where is Simone Inzaghi going to be? Where is Xabi Alonso going to be? I think let's just be patient with the progress and let's just see what happens. I honestly, I'm pretty underqualified to talk about Al Hilal and Simone Inzaghi. Maybe someone else can give a better answer than I. I do know Al Hilal do obviously have some good players. Um, I think it's fair to say they are maybe a little bit more accustomed to the heat than Real Madrid. Although I honestly don't even know if that's true. That's also an assumption. I'm assuming that they play their games at night there, so it might be a little bit cooler. Maybe they have some AC in the stadiums. I don't know. Either way, I do think that we just need time to make this work. Yeah. Um, all right, we're gonna jump into questions. And if you're gonna ask a question, I'd ask you to come up because you need to speak into the microphone so YouTube can hear you too. So Orlando, come on up, buddy.
Hey, Keon, thanks for having me. This is my second time seeing you. Back in 2021, saw you here in Miami. I guess my question is, piggybacking off of that sort of cohesion and building balance. There's we had a lot of defensive woes last year. We addressed it with a few signings already. There are still some attacking woes to fix, but in my view, a problem with the balance is the profiles in midfield. And I just want to ask you, like, what do you think are how would you describe the profiles of our midfield and what's missing from them? How do we build control in the center of the park? And I think it was evidential right in this game that at halftime we bring in Arda Güler, we move Chouamani back, and then all of a sudden there's a bit more control and things of that sort. So I wonder if what's the mix that we need to find? So.
Yeah, you answered the question. You said Goulet. That's to me the answer because I understand the all these names that come up, right? Stiller, for example, Vitinha, who is an impossible dream. Goulet is in the squad. I say we use him. I would trust Xabi Alonso. I'd be really curious to see how his role evolves because, like you said, the second half was completely different. And I would completely might be an exaggeration. It was an improvement, right? There was more control, there was more possession, there was more verticality. I thought Goulet picked up the ball really well as soon as he came in. And he's a guy who can play in a deeper role. He can progress the ball. And I think it just makes sense to develop him. Like I would have serious questions. It's like as much as like we hear players like Zubimendi or Angelo Stiller, at some point I think we just have to use the talent we have and just see where it goes. Like what's the point of having such a talented young player like Arda Güler who would just ride the bench or kind of be a fringe player and never really see us develop him to his full potential? And I think we have to see that first. Let's see it for like 1 year. If after 1 year, Goulet's not lived up to the hype and he's not taking the leap we thought he would by now, fine. Go to the transfer market, see what you can do. And maybe by then, a better option will open up that doesn't exist right now. Like, how many of us had Stiller on our radar last year? None of us, right? And so I would say give the keys to Goulet for 1 year. See how he develops in that role, and don't sign anyone because I do like reality is we do have a lot of midfielders. And, I got super excited seeing Kamavinga in training, progressing a little bit more today. He's getting closer. My concern with him is always injuries. Him and Ceballos both seem to be missing half the year, but, we have a lot of midfielders that we can piece together. And look, and Trent, I don't think was at his best yesterday, but he is going to yesterday. What's it's too hot in Miami. What do you play Wednesday, Tuesday? Wednesday. 2 weeks ago. Um, but Trent is going to solve a lot of those problems too. Hausen's vertical passing was really impressive, and it has been impressive for a while. So between Hausen and Trent, maybe Goulet in a new role, um, I think it's going to improve. Think about this. Xabi Alonso's main strength as a manager is literally ball progression. That's his bread and butter. That is what he's best at. He's best at baiting people into a press, baiting teams to come out of their shell and just playing through them. So give him some time. Let's see if he rewards Goulet for that second half, and let's see it. I that's my personal opinion. I wouldn't sign anyone for that position. Well, I mean, Valverde is definitely untouchable. Bellingham's untouchable. I think it would come down to Rodrigo or somebody. I mean, realistically speaking, there are probably conversations to be had about like, you know, should Vinicius be starting every game the way he's playing right now? But Mbappe is going to start, Vinny's going to start, Valverde is going to start, Bellingham's going to start. That's five. That leaves room for one more in the front six. Then you have to take your pick between Rodrigo, Goulet, Camavinga.
Do you think we're going to go on 4-3-3, or do you think because before everybody is excited about Xavi and like him changing things around and so on, and hearing about the three central defenders and like a 3-4-2-1 or something like that for the game. By the way, I'm a member of the Peña Madridista Sur de Florida. Okay, so shout out to
Shout out to Peña Madridista Sur de California. Shout out to you guys. Yeah.
Anyway, so
After the show, everybody should go see you and sign up. That would be ideal. Yeah. You guys get together and watch the games. Yeah.
every game that's after 11 or 12, yeah, 11. Anyway, so before the other day on Tuesday night, I was with one of the other members, Luis Man. He was saying we were talking about like who was going to play tomorrow, and he said Trent, Heisen, Asensio, Fran, and it was going to be the three with Bellingham, Chouameni, and Valverde. Sorry, and then he said Vini, Mbappe, Rodrigo. And we're like, what happened? It's the same thing. And
Yeah.
and we have so many players. We have Cooler, we have Camavinga. So think about them. Like, what the ball is going to be. Would it be better maybe to do like a 3-4-2-1, where you have one extra midfielder? Even you can put Carvajal as the third central, and Trent. So there's so many other things that you can switch around with a 3-4-2-1. I mean,
I think it's I that same thing you said. A lot of people felt a little bit disappointed with, like, oh, it's the same. It's like, I think we were expecting some kind of revolution, but I think it's very possible that the change doesn't come necessarily in the lineup, but also just in the method of the playing, with the same players possibly. I think Xabi Alonso did say something interesting after the game, because somebody actually asked him this exact question of, are you going to stick with 4-3-3, or are you going to switch to 3-4-1-2? And he didn't say definitively that he's going to stick with the 4-3-3. What he said was, right now, our reality is we don't have enough defenders to play 3-4-1-2. He said, we had only Asensio and Dean Howson, and Chouameni had to play center back. And so we don't have, even if we wanted to, we don't have enough bodies in defense to do this. It would be interesting if he did go that route one day. If he feels, I mean, he has time. By the time the season starts, Militao will be back, Alaba will be back, Rudiger will be back. So you now all of a sudden you go from 2 defenders to like 6. So you have that option to play it. It is very interesting to me if he does go that route. What happens to the conversation we were just having? We said now you have another player out of the front 6 taken out. And so now it becomes even more challenging to fit, people like Goulet. It just becomes a very fascinating conversation to me. I don't know the answer to that. Honestly, don't. Maybe we'll see a bit of both. You might have to speak a little louder.
Sure, sure,
Or
sure.
you can come up here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, while we're on the formation topic,
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off of what we were talking about when we're on the formation topic, I think one of the things for me that I've noticed, if we take it back to the year we won the Champions League 2 years ago, the 4-4-2 diamond was, we have a lot of the same pieces that we have still from that team. And it was evident to me that the pieces that we have from the 4-4-2 diamond to what we were playing last year, the 4-4-3, weren't fitting as well. We don't have a controller like we did with Cruz, but I feel like a lot of the pieces that we have, like Guler, Camavinga, Valverde, Chouameni, we have more control overall when we have that 4-4-2 formation versus with the 4-4-3. And I'm curious to hear what everyone else has to say about that. But kind of just to piggyback off of that, what do you think about the 4-4-2 versus, I know we have the three at the back, but I think with the pieces that we have right now, the 4-4-2 is what makes the most sense. And for what you
How would
lose,
you do 4-4-2? How would you line up?
so what you lose, you would have to take Rodrigo as a super sub, in my opinion. Vinian, or you would have a situation like, for me, it was really surprising that with Mbappe sick or injured or
Gastroenteritis.
gastroenteritis,
Not fun.
it was really surprising that we didn't see that 4-4-2 diamond, and he opted with Gonzalo instead. But Gonzalo, great player,
Looks great.
great bright future. Really curious to me that with the pieces that we have, especially in the midfield, we're really more of a midfield heavy team, that we didn't see more or a formation that was more like that.
It's early. I mean, I know, like we're I don't know what to say because we're one game in to the Xabi Alonso era. But just on that note, you reminded me one of my possibly my main takeaway from Wednesday night, uh, was that immediately in his first game, when Mbappe is not there, he trusted Gonzalo Garcia, and that to me seemed like unheard of, like based on what we've seen in the last few years, because this is not a preseason game. This is a Club World Cup, so there's a lot at stake. There's a lot on the line in terms of prize money, so you have to win every game. So he obviously values Gonzalo Garcia very highly to put him in the lineup there. And I think he does look great. And I mean, I think he's obviously a very different profile to Kylian Mbappe, right? But he is, to me, like, how many of you guys were old enough to see Raul play, like when he was a kid? Yeah. You remember Raul, like how intelligent he was? Yeah, he was just so cerebral with the way smart. What's street smart? He just knew how to get in the right zones, like off the ball. Like his instinct was incredible, right? I look, I think it's almost blasphemous to put Gonzalo Garcia on that level. But that's not what I'm doing. But it kind of reminded me of Raul in the sense that, like, if you look at the goal he scored, the touch was clumsy, right? Yeah, it was. I mean, wait, we all of us in the stadium. I don't know about you guys. I didn't know. I I thought it was clean. Yeah. Then you see the replay, like, oh, it, like hit like 8 different parts of his body. But if you look at the build up to it, it like he made that happen. Like, go ahead.
on the build-up to me was probably the best sequence that we saw from Real Madrid all game. The
Yeah.
build-up to that from Trent's diagonal pass to the left side where they cooked it up and they crossed it in and he
finished it. That to me was what I want to see more of from Reals.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think we're gonna see higher volume of that. Like for example, the pressing, right? We were
Those are automatic.
Yes,
there. You go. Yeah.
Trent, there's that diagonal pass that Trent that set up the entire goal. That I think it freed up so much space where you could see the team like kind of get that unleashed. Like you could see that that's what Real Madrid need. That's what we feed on.
Yeah, 100%. And just wait till Trent gets going. Like, and because Trent is going to solve a lot of those problems. But that particular sequence that you're speaking about, if you see Gonzalo Garcia, it was like all of his entire package in one play. He's a really strong dribbler. He can hold it up. There was one I took a note. I think it was like 20 something minute. It was a long ball from Courtois, I think, and it was going towards Gonzalo Garcia. He chested it. You saw that, right? And I was like, what are you gonna do with that? And then all of a sudden he just leaps and he just chests it right into I think Vinny's path. And like that kind of like strength and hold up was really impressive for me to see. His link up play is excellent. Keep in mind, no player in Castilla history ever scored 27 goals the way he just did. I think Mariano was the only guy, funny enough. But that might be a bad omen, actually. Actually, I think Mariano would have had a good career if he stayed at Lyon. There's a lot of, he needed a lot to go his way. But honestly, like he was at Lyon, he scored 17 goals. He would have went to Sevilla. I think he would have had a good career, and then Real Madrid intervened, took him, and then it was downhill from there. And the Barcelona goal. Yeah. We're still talking about him. Yeah. At one point, I think his goal scoring ratio for Real Madrid was like a goal per second. It was like absurd. The last goal before the pandemic was him, I think, at the Bernabeu. That was the one. Yeah, yeah. So Gonzalo Garcia, I like it. A lot of talk about Joselu, how much we miss having someone like him. Gonzalo Garcia is not as tall as Joselu or as good in the air as Joselu, but I was really impressed with how strong he was. Like he got to some back post headers that he really had no business getting to. Like it was actually really impressive to see his aerial strength and just his strength overall. So I'm excited about him. I don't know what it means for next season, but he might be an outlier. He might be a dark horse rather of like players we weren't expecting to be like an important part of the team this year. But he might be a candidate, I think. Yeah. What other questions do we have? Diego? Diego and then brother? Yeah. We got the whole Madridista family here. By the way, if you guys remember, how many of you guys are patrons? Okay, so quite a few of you. On the mailbag, someone asked what kind of shot I want to drink. Do you remember this question? Diego was the one who asked the question. So when I came downstairs, he had the shot of espresso ready for me. So I appreciate it. Flash Doncic.
Yeah, that's me. Shout out Doncic. No, well, my question actually kind of piggybacks a little bit off the Gonzalo Garcia decision. The fact that he actually, started him, Xavi. I mean, how intentional do you think his substitutions were, specifically with Trent and Bini? Because it was surprising to me to see on his debut game getting replaced for as much love as I got for Lucas, right. And then especially also Bini for Victor, players that played less than 90 minutes probably collectively last season, right? So how much was that, do you think, intentional as a message of you're not living up to what I'm expecting of you for this game and I'm going to take you out there, versus potentially just incorporated to the team and I need something different?
That's actually a great question. That's a press conference question for him. Like I might write that one down. Because I don't know, but it's a good question. I mean, sometimes these subs are premeditated from before the game. Like, like, okay, Trent, you're going to get 60, 70 minutes today. I know, like, we want to get you a break. You have to factor in the fact that Xabi Alonso is a coach that likes to rotate. He likes to keep players fresh. He at Leverkusen, it was a lot of players getting involved constantly. It wasn't just a small circle of trust. So that's part of it too. I agree that like seeing Lucas Vasquez like in 2025 in the Club World Cup wasn't like the most exciting thing, but he also doesn't have Danny Carvajal right now, and if Trent Alexander-Arnold needs rest, then who else are you going to bring, right? I don't. I don't. My personal opinion, I don't think it was a message. No, I think it like he said after the game that like we had to make a lot of subs because people were hot. It was people were dying. Like it was hot. Like and keep in mind like this is not a team that necessarily is in full fitness mode right now. They're still trying to find it. So I think it's a combination of now. Having said that, if Trent is lights out all game and is like playing unbelievable, does he make that sub? Maybe, maybe not. I'm honestly not sure. I don't know. Press conference. I'm gonna ask that. It's a good question. It's a good question. I mean, I think the interesting one actually for me was Vinny for Victor Munoz. Yeah. Um.
I was surprised you're leaving Gonzalo in, which he deserved it, right? But I mean, Vini's Vini, right? And you need a goal, and it was just surprising to me that on his debut, with the amount of time, it was about maybe like 25 minutes, like it wasn't like an 80th minute, right?
Right.
It was a considerable. I was just given that spotlight.
Yeah.
He did. Keep in mind, yeah.
Sending a message as much as I think he's not having a good game, that Allah was having probably one of the best things ever.
And the injury with Brazil, well, injury, I put it in quotes, but like, could that be a concern also for Vinny? Because I mean, you want to have Vinny in for as long as possible. If you keep Vinny on for an extra 25 minutes and he picks up an injury and he's not here for the next 2 weeks, yeah.
But Vinny had yellow, right? So that could be part of the.
But do you think Ancelotti makes that change?
No. No.
I think it's interesting. I want to see what happens with Vini now because his spot maybe is not as
Well, I think that's all bit that like how you need to figure out like how long Vinny can get back to the form that a couple years ago. I think that's like top two on my list.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also like. There's probably a little bit of the fact that he played with Brazil, a few days ago. It's a lot of heat. Those games in CONMEBOL are very intense as well. So he has, there was a lot of mileage on him on Vinny when you factor all that in the season plus the international games just before the Club World Cup. I think that all factors, and maybe more surprising than Vinny getting subbed, although that is surprising, is maybe Victor Munoz is the one who came in. But I would say I'm happy for him too. I mean, he's a player who he's very fast. Like his first touch was like right off the bat, he tried to get it the first touch passes. Man, he almost pulled it up, but didn't quite. But he's quick. But maybe the question is this possibly an omen for the rest of the season or under the Xabi Alonso era that he won't be afraid to pull off a superstar who's not performing? That would be a good question to ask, I think. And if that's because I think with Vinny, to me, I still think he can get back to his best. He's a special player. I mean, just sometimes I just go back and watch highlights from last season, the season before that. I'm like, this guy's doing things that nobody else can do. He's incredible. And something about it, I don't know how you guys felt watching it in person, but there seemed to be like lacking a bit of a bounce or a confidence to his dribble attempts, to his decision making. And it's all tied into confidence for me somehow. Like the body language is just he doesn't look as sharp as he was like the year before. That remember the shot that basically hit the corner flag? Do you guys remember that one? If you look at that sequence, there were like 3-4 Real Madrid players in and around the box that could have just received the pass, and it was just a poor decision at that point. But the execution was so bad too. But there were a lot of, and this not to pin it on Vinny because I think a lot of the players were not at their best on the first game. But I think just a lot of the passing and transition was lacking, and the shooting was lacking. The dribbles were not effective. So he needs to get back to his best. But the question is like, for me, Vinny has always been the type of player who's so great that even if he's having a poor game, it's worth keeping him on on the field because in minute 90 he can score the game winner with a moment of magic, and he's not going to be shy to do that. To a different extent, obviously at a much greater level, Ronaldo was like this too. Ronaldo could go 89 minutes, you wouldn't see him, but obviously you keep him on the field because in minute 90 he could score an incredible goal, right? These are moments players. But I do think that is when you're in such a rut of form, is it worth taking that gamble in these high stake games, or do you just switch him out for somebody who can, maybe do something else? And I think that's a question that I think in the Carlo Ancelotti era, I would doubt we would see that sub regularly, if at all. I think with Xabi Alonso, we might see it. Yeah. Can you come up? I was just checking the YouTube comments. They said the guest volume is low, so just keep that.
Just to follow up on this conversation, because our locker room is stars, right? And so we're talking about Chavi coming in and the subs of the younger guys coming in and our superstars getting subbed out. I guess I'm sitting here thinking like two things, and this is more of a personal take, so I don't want to offend anybody if you're a Rodrigo fan in the room, but how long is that going to wait, and that's kind of my question of like, how long are we going to occupy the right wing with him? Because I think somebody said over the weekend, like, well, he provided the assist in the goal and he helped build up play. And I was like, so that's the bar, right? And that's kind of one part that I think about. But then I think too of like our superstars, right? So Vinny comes off, Mbappe, let's just say for example, comes off. Like you see these guys come off and they're pissed, right? Because they're superstars. These are our highest paid players, biggest players in the world. So for the room and for you, like, how do you see the squad responding to this? Of like the manager now saying, "Hey, enough's enough. We're going to put in the 18-year-old, and he's going to go get off." Because sometimes you see that drain the player's confidence, and we don't really see a bounce back. But I'm just kind of curious because that's kind of where I'm at right now. Of like, how are these guys going to respond? They have an ego, and that's just a part of it, right?
Well, we can maybe gauge the room. I'll just give my personal opinion on what you just said. I think competition is healthy. I think when someone just knows that no matter what they do, they'll play, I think they can fall into almost unintentional or subconscious complacency where it's like, okay, well, it doesn't really matter how I perform. I'll try my best, but if I don't, I'm going to be on the field regardless. You think back to 2016, 2017. Remember Zidane had the A team and the B team. How much fun we had watching that team. And it was, those were the days where we enjoyed watching Lucas Vasquez. And like Lucas Vasquez was a huge part of the B team. Lucas Vasquez, James, and Morata, and Nacho, who? Kovacic, probably missing a bunch of players. Danilo maybe was there behind Carvajal. So, we weren't sitting here saying like, is it good to have Morata be Benzema's backup or having Lucas Vasquez on the right wing? Or it's like it was such healthy competition. It kept it served two purposes. One is that it kept everyone on their toes. The second thing is that it kept everyone fresh for May and June when the Champions League knockouts and the finals roll around. And I think that's one thing that I'm really welcoming in the Xabi Alonso era if it goes that route of heavy rotation. Every time you remember the Clasico Copa del Rey final. That was the 2-1 loss in extra time. Am I getting that right? Three. Is it Wednesday, Thursday? I don't know. The Heat. There's like this scene at the end when Barcelona players are celebrating. It's just Jude Bellingham and Fede Valverde exhausted on the grass, like lying down. And I always think of that image because like those two have so much on their shoulders, so much weight to carry in terms of the amount of defensive coverage they have to put in, the amount of positions they have to be in. Jude Bellingham has to be here, here, there. And I just wonder what Jude Bellingham will look like in May, June under Xabi Alonso if he's not being run into the ground, not only tactically but also with maybe more rotation. So I think to your question, like, yeah, I think it's a healthy thing. I I I think it's good to have those options available and to know that someone is right behind you who could take your place at any moment. I think that's a healthy thing. Yeah. Yes. You want to come up? Yeah. Yeah. Well, your son is pushing
So
you. Yeah.
here's the grandpa. So basically, we have a player like Brahim, and every time he gets in as a substitute, he goes and breaks everybody havoc there. So I believe he has the abilities to do that, and he's done that many times in our players. So he was not selected as a replacement of Mbappe, and I believe Xavi had the opportunity to either move Rodrigo to the center and maybe have Rahimi on the same place as Rodrigo, or maybe let's give these guys a chance. And then when it's time to go a sub uh, mini, he also decided for another guy from the cantera.
Yes.
So he also keeps still Rahim there, down, sitting down. So you have to see those messages not for the players that are coming out, but for those that are not coming in.
Yeah.
And my explanation is not that Brahimi is not playing the right level, whatever. It is just that maybe Xavi has been seeing these guys from the cantera first, and he's trying to play them in this initial match. We have to give him a little bit of a play time and just trust Xavi with the the way they're playing. I've seen in the back an improvement in the back that we never saw with our previous guy. I mean, it is obvious that the ball is going to go to Dean, and Dean is going to do the start of the pass into the middle. That is obvious because we did that the entire game this time.
Yeah.
So that's something that is working. I saw Raul trying to put the ball always to Dean. I saw Fran trying to make the ball get to Dean, and then Dean making the decision to what's going to do. So that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you will see it the next time. That's going to be there. Now, the rest of the people in the middle, in the front, they just came in very late into the practices. So
Yeah.
just give them a little bit of time before we do that.
Patience.
So, patience.
Yeah. I think you make a great point too, because you were mentioning like in Mbappe's absence, we went Gonzalo Garcia and not necessarily Brahim on the wing with Rodrigo playing a center forward. I think what's interesting about that is that, and look, it's still so early, it's hard to predict this for sure, but Xabi has a system in place, right? And he has specific profiles for those positions. And so it's not necessarily now about fitting in all the best players just because of their name. So just because Brahim has more experience or Rodrigo has more experience, and maybe he doesn't want Rodrigo as a false nine. Maybe he really wants more of a target guy like Gonzalo. So even though you're younger in rank and you're less established, because you fit that specific profile, I'm going to trust you on the field. And I think that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Is that like in the past, I think when a player was injured or suspended, it was a lot of like, okay, we just keep our best players, but we'll put them in a different position. Maybe this will be different in that players will not be played out of position as much, and we can use the youth players. I think one of the biggest issues of really last year, because up until before that, the Ancelotti era was incredible. Some of the best memories we've ever had. I think the problem last year, in part, was that we didn't sign reinforcements, right? The Carvajal ACL injury. And so we also didn't trust the youth team players to fill those positions. So we had no signings and no youth team players coming in to put it together. I think other teams, I hate to say it, but Barca, like for example, if they don't have a specific signing, then they'll just bring the kid in. Like, okay, we'll bring the kid in. And I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I wish we were like that. No, fuck that. Because we're the most successful team in the history of sports for a reason, because what we do works, right? But I do think there are certain cases like I look at players like Gonzalo Garcia or Jesus Fortea, who is one of the most promising right backs in Spain right now. we have a lot of talented players, and I think it's just a matter of like putting these guys in positions where we can give them confidence and trust them. So this is a long-winded way of saying like your point about Brahim not starting over Gonzalo Garcia. Well, like I think maybe that would have happened last year, but Gonzalo fits the specific profile that Xabi Alonso wants in the team, and I think that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Yeah. Or for Victor Munoz, yeah. Right. Was the baby here when I swore? No? Okay. Whew. Any other questions? Yes. I'm gonna. Well, your voice is pretty loud. It's good. Uh, Endrick? I don't know. I have a hunch that Endrick might struggle things some game time this season. It's just a hunch. I could be completely wrong, but I do wonder if where he fits in Xabi. Because I think he needs to polish his decision making quite a bit. I think he's just so raw and chaotic, and I think he makes a lot of poor decisions. But he's obviously very talented, and he's not a shy player, and I think he has a lot of promise. I'm curious to know, like, if you ask me, like, between him and Gonzalo Garcia, who looks kind of more mature and ready with his decision making, Gonzalo Garcia does, in my opinion. So I'm really interested to see what that means for Hendrick. Maybe alone, but I think he'll be in the squad, but perhaps not as prominent as a role in Xabi's first season is my guess. Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on Endrick? Loan, keep, start, bench?
He's a key. So I just think he's going to struggle. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think Gonzalo's going to keep a lot of his minutes. I think they encourage him. So one takeaway you can take away from one game is Xavi will give chances to players that we didn't see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What else do we got? Yeah. Trying to think of any players that are coming back by then. I don't. Maybe Mbappe, although it's not looking likely as of right now. Definitely must win. I was thinking in my head that before these first 3 games, that Real Madrid would obviously win their group and come back to Miami. And so I would like to come back to Miami. And so I hope they win their group, but I don't know. Like, they obviously have to win the next 2 games. I'm trying to think of any personnel changes. I would be curious to see if Goulier hits the starting lineup. And I would be curious to see maybe a better version of Trent. Yeah, he's fine. Yeah. I think it would have to be Rodrigo, but I don't see. But the thing is, the reason I struggle to say that is that it really depends on if Xabi Alonso wants a pure winger on that right side, then Rodrigo is a better pure winger than Arda Güler, who's kind of a different profile. So I really don't know. But the reason I say Güler is because he came in and he improved the team in the second half, so it would make sense that he would be rewarded with that. The other one, I think Carvajal is still out. He has some kind of neck pain, although I don't know, but maybe he'll be back for the third game. I would look for a better version of Trent. The Heat is what you guys know better than me. Charlotte versus Miami Heat. What's that like? Better, worse, the same? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, no shade. Yeah. I mean, that day was just drenched in sweat, like, and you can't really like. There's no perfect temperature here because, and then you get inside and like the AC's blasting. This is actually comfortable, but like that that day of the game, we're sweating all day getting to the stadium, and then it just like literally just drenched in sweat, and then you're in this press section and the AC is blasting. So then like the sweat kind of like cools and dries, and then you're freezing. It's disgusting. Anyway, I don't know. Charlotte Heat, yeah, it's probably not going to be any better. But what do you guys expect? Just blurt it out. What would you like to see different or improve for next game? Okay, we got 4-4-2. What else? Any players you want to see in the lineup that you didn't see? Okay. Brahim starting. Okay. Any Goulet starters for next game? Yeah. He seems better off the bench. Yeah. Forte and Aguado. Yeah. Is Forte on the squad? He is okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Aguado looks very promising too. That's another one. I mean, I think, for example, Diego Aguado can play left back. He's kind of like he's more center back, but he can play left back. What did you guys think of Fran Garcia's performance? Is that someone you would trust with that role, or? I think that's the one position I think that I'm worried about. And I'm not, unless Alvaro Carreras comes. He's actually a promising player. Yeah.
Didn't see anything. Like one game, one game.
Yeah. Which game did you see? In the Club World Cup? Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been keeping tabs on him in the Club World Cup, so I'm not sure. But we did an entire scouting report on him, and no, but I think part of the challenge is that they feel like they need to get someone. The market is a bit difficult with left backs. He is, by all accounts, and I am like you. I didn't watch the Portuguese league, but I spoke to a lot of scouts in Portugal, and they said, you know, he was Benfica's best player. He has room to grow. He is strong defensively. Someone said that he's a good balance to Trent on the other side. But I think if it's not him, that would be my solution, personally. Yeah. Yeah. I think, in my opinion, Camavinga, show of hands, is Camavinga our best left back? Most of the room? Most of the room? Yeah.
But I think he's kind of the same cookie cutter solution, even though he has a way higher ceiling than that's Chouameni. So I see Camavinga and Chouameni putting them in a left back and a center back. Kind of the same thing. It's a temporary fix, but it doesn't solve. But it's still not it's not a natural position.
You're right, but I think so. It really depends on how he's deployed. But I will say, I think the interesting thing about Camavinga at left back is that he can affect the midfield from that position as well, because he's gotten so good. I mean, at his best. I mean, he had a down year this year, but at his best when he was playing left back, he had such a good understanding of when to push, when to stay back, and he would take up positions in left center midfield, and he started to really get that position. I think if you use him like the way you use Trent on that side, you know, Trent when you know, you were talking about when Dean gets the ball, that there was the plan, right? You know, Dean gets the ball and they kind of try to build through the middle. It goes to Chouameni, vertical pass. Whenever Real had the ball at the back, Trent would drift kind of centrally. And so he basically occupied a midfield position. And, you know, Camavinga can do that too. We saw Camavinga do that under Ancelotti a lot. And he's a bit of a solution maker. So I would go with Camavinga as our left back if we don't get Carreras. That's my personal opinion. I don't think Fran Garcia is Real Madrid starting material. I think maybe in the squad. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Rayo was a great spot for him. He looked good at Rayo Vallecano. Or maybe like as a squad player, it makes sense. But like, we're talking about a club whose standards are Marcelo and Roberto Carlos Carvajal, right? So there's a certain, Look, and it's hard to get that player in every single position. Like it's really hard to get 11 world class players. Sometimes you just need players who can kind of fill in. That's where I see Carreras. Maybe as just a solid player. He's not a superstar, but he's just a solid two-way player. I think that's where he would fit. Overpaying. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think we keep? Who do we keep? If we get Carreras, who do we keep out of Mendy, Fran, and Carreras?
It would probably make sense to keep Mendy in that situation because I think he will be harder to move. Like Fran Garcia, I think you could find him a home. He's young, he's energetic, he has room to grow. He could start for a bunch of teams in La Liga, I think. I think Mendy's contract is so brutal and he's older and he's just the injuries have broken his body, man. Like he's not the same player he was physically. And so I think he'll be harder to move for that reason. And look, as an experienced squad player, maybe it makes sense to have him as a backup, especially considering, we're talking about Trent on the other side and how much he likes to push forward. It might be good to have that balance on that side. You have Vinny and Mbappe on the left wing who are not defending much. By the way, I have to say, did anybody see my question to Xabi Alonso about Mbappe's pressing? This became a huge thing online because the Mbappe cultists found it. And my theory, I don't know if I think there's probably some burner accounts from his family involved, but like these guys went crazy over like, how are you talking about Mbappe's pressing and stuff? Like, dude, the whole purpose of the question was literally, is this exaggerated or not? It was no shade at Mbappe. Mbappe is like an incredible player. I just wanted to put that on record. That's it. Rudiger.
Coming back, because I don't know if you saw what came out today that Real Madrid considering they sent scouts to like look at the pitches and they're considering not playing anyone if they're injured, especially with ACLs. I don't know if you have any.
I don't have any information on that. I do think that they're not going to risk any of these players right now. I mean, for what? I think with regards to your question, I think we would be lucky to get like 80% of Militao's best. I'm kind of pessimistic about that one because that dude hasn't played football in like 3 years. It's a really sad situation. One ACL out for a year, comes back, starting to find his feet, other ACL gone. And I wonder like how devastating that is mentally too, not just physically, to like be out of the sport you love for 2 years. I think it's going to be difficult for him to bounce back. Alaba's situation might be even more difficult because he's older. We have a doctor who works for Managing Madrid, Vic Sopti, and he's a radiologist, and he was saying that like when you're older, ACL injuries are just so much harder to recover from. When you're younger, like in your Jean Martinez situation, there's more optimism. But the older you are, it's just harder to bounce back. Carvajal, I mean, he's such a warrior. Like with him, I wouldn't be surprised if he just somehow comes back and he's like a really, really high level just because it's Carvajal. He's just a crazy like work ethic. He takes care of himself. Yeah, like last time he cut out gluten, this time he might cut out like I don't know sugar. Like so all of a sudden, like gluten-free, sugar-free Carvajal is going to go to another level. But with Carvajal, at least I think there's less urgency if he comes back to his best because we have Trent. You could possibly say the same about Militao and Alba because in the end you do have Rudiger and Dean House and Asensio. So, but I don't know. The Militao and Alba kind of, I think it's a bit of a bonus if they come back to 80-90% of themselves. Yeah. Militao optimism in this room? Anyone more optimistic than me?
How old is he? 26? No. But the only thing is that he relied so much on his physique.
Yeah. 27.
Yeah, so we don't have to do it. Alaba is 1 year outside, and Carvajal has 1 year left, I think. Yeah. mean, pero Canadá, it's a low bar because you know, it's not the, you know, it's not the Sarah.
Yeah, that was peak Alaba. Yeah, Orlando.
After 90 minutes, are you
If you're close enough, you can just.
after 90 minutes, are you ready to make any conclusions about Dean Howson? How good is he? How you know what does he bring to the team that changes our dynamic?
This is less about the 90 minutes and more about like what we've also seen with him at the Spanish national team and Bournemouth over the past year or so. I think he is much more mature. He's mature beyond his years. Like he carries himself like a 27-year-old, like a veteran. He's so composed and controlled and calm under pressure on the ball. This is exactly the profile is exactly what we needed. Like if you had to like you wrote out the profile of like calm center back, young, can help with ball progression, good in the air, Spanish. This is the guy you. This is perfect. This is exactly what you want. Maybe there will be situations where I think maybe his speed will be an issue on the high line, maybe. But I mean, I'm really excited about this kid. I think he's awesome, and I think I was really worried that we wouldn't sign a center back this year, and I even predicted we wouldn't. But when I realized like Dean Howson was available and I started to learn more about him and I started to research how good he is, because I hadn't, he wasn't on my radar, until like halfway through the season. Because I think Bournemouth had injuries to their center backs and then he came in and then he started at Bournemouth. And then after that, he never looked back. They never benched him again. So he was kind of relatively new on the radar. But once I started to look into it, someone had asked about Dean Howson like in December. And that I had knew nothing. I would refuse to say his last name because I was like, what is this? This is Huij. No one else. So I just said Dean. And then I looked him up and I was like, these analytics are through the roof. Like 99th percentile progressive passing, pass completion, interceptions, blocks, all this stuff. And then I was like, okay, well, analytically, he's a beast. Then you start to like catch some highlights and then like kind of as the links start to heat up, then you like do look at some scouting reports and some film and you talk to people, you're like, wow, this guy's special. And then you see him with the Spanish national team, he's called up. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about him. No question. Like when a player like that is available, I think you just got to go for it. Yeah. And like, it's not like we have a shortage of defenders in the squad. Like my concern with Real Madrid is always like, sometimes they tend to not sign someone because they have contracts in the squad in those positions. We're in this situation with Militao and Alaba and all these contracts, Rudiger, and then left back we have Mendy and Alaba. By the way, like for the 100th time, Mendy should not have been renewed. I don't know why we did that. Now we're stuck with that contract, but Dean Howson, I'm excited. I'm excited for him. Yeah. What else do we got? Yes. Oh yeah, you were wanting to come back. Come on up.
I hold this player in high regard, and I don't know how it'll be taken in this room, but I'm also a Spain fan at the end of the day, so I'm excited to see him. But how do we stop Yamal for the next 7 years? 31 coach vacancies, and if you can answer the question right.
If I coach any team, they'd be relegated in the first year. I mean, stopping Lamine Yamal he's such a special player, but you have to look at the collective and how, like, for example, you look at the Inter game, for example, or you look at, what was that Spain, the Portugal game? The blueprint. Nuno Mendes can probably stop him on his own. Like, there you go, sign Nuno Mendes. But the other thing is, I think it's such a collective effort, right? If you're going to, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to talk about like isolated players and how do you stop an isolated players in isolation? Because if you talk about specific matchups like Fran Garcia versus Lamine Yamal, well, that's something that worries you, right? When you talk about Real Madrid playing a high line in that space that can be exploited, well, that worries you, right? Often the answer to something like that is if you want to stop Lamine Yamal, you prevent him getting the ball in the first place. That's one option, right? So with Xabi Alonso, the way he likes to maneuver these things is that he likes to control the ball. He likes to control possession to limit the opposing team even getting a chance on the ball. A lot of it will come down to coverage. The importance of the left center back in that role, which is Dean Howson, to cover, and his coverage on both sides has been excellent in the first game. The importance of the DM, the importance of the left back itself, obviously, to win those individual battles, and obviously you want to look at it the other way, in my opinion, which is having a player like Lamine Yamal means you can have a lot of space behind him to exploit as well. So you already know you have going to have a winger who's going to hug the touchline and try to play higher up the pitch. You have Vinny on that side, you have Mbappe on that side. Often, yeah. That's the way I would look at it. Yeah. 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 Look, if Real Madrid play to their best, they should be. Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Huge. Yeah, do you want to pass that one down? Thank you very much. One more? Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. When you think about when Real Madrid were playing against Messi, you know what's a crazy stat? After Ronaldo left Real Madrid in 2018, Ronaldo and Messi have the same amount of Clasico goals since then. Just goes to show you that we did an incredible job of defending Messi for years after that. And I think part of that was, we were much more dominant in our play. And so you limit the amount of meaningful touches that your opposing team gets in significant areas where they could do damage. I think that's part of it. Yeah. Zizou ball. Yeah. Zizou. Oh, Zidane in Clásicos was a game over. Like, he did not lose Clásicos. Yeah. Also, I think Lamine Yamal is defeating himself online right now with everything that's going on. Yes, that's right. Casemiro striker and chaos. Yeah. All right. What else do we got? Diego, you want to come on up? You send your dad up, but not yourself. Come on.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Gonzalo, but Cortegana came out and reported a couple of days ago that Madrid is combing the market for a Joselu type striker. I don't think we need him, but assuming they're going to get someone, does someone come to your mind as who that would be? And the only right answer is Budimir.
Budimir is the only one I would think of as well. Yeah, because he's as close as the Joselu profile you can get. He's tall. He's very good in the air. He always scores against us, which is what Joselu did. That was part of the benefit of that signing, was that the damn guy stopped scoring against us. You bring him in your team instead. He's very difficult to deal with in the air. Obviously, you factor in now, you upgrade the surrounding pieces that Budimir is used to playing with, and all of a sudden the people who are crossing to him are Trent, Dean, Modric, Goulet. You would assume that he would get on the end of a lot of chances. So if I had to sign somebody, it would be Budimir. If I had a choice right now, I would kind of lean towards Gonzalo Garcia. Yes. Yeah. This is another good press conference question. But Budimir or Gonzalo Garcia? Yeah. Yeah.
So 2 years ago, we saw Bellingham be almost a false nine of sorts. Then, last year he was tasked to be a little bit deeper. And I know Xavi's been asked this, and he said he sees him as a midfielder, whatever that might mean, right? Where do you see is his best role? Like, sometimes we ask him to be almost like a cruise controller, then other times we're asking him to be the goal scorer. Where do you think he feels most comfortable? Where do you think Xavi wants him to be? And yeah.
Bellingham. Sorry. I'm really curious to see another press conference question. There you go. Bellingham, because Xabi Alonso has spoken about putting Bellingham in the right role like so many times, but he's been kind of vague about what that means because he sees him as a midfielder, and he's said multiple times he's clearly a midfielder. So does that mean he's an 8? He's a 6? You know, obviously not a 6, but an 8 or a 10. I'm very curious to see where he plays. I personally think his best position is basically either an 8 or a 10. I think he can play those both at an elite level. If you put him as an 8, he played that at Dortmund a lot. You know, you guys have been listening. You know that Lucas has this thing that Bellingham is not a midfielder. He has this weird stance and he won't get off it. And my thing is that, like, well, look where he was playing at Dortmund. Like, he was never supposed to be this false 9. Obviously, thank God he came in and did it. We needed him after Benzema left, but that's primarily instinctually he's a midfielder who can contribute defensively and offensively. But does putting him in the 8 and maybe maximize the team's strengths, or is it a 10? I don't know. Is it like a Florian Wirtz role? You know, that Xavi had at Bayer Leverkusen. I think it's a bit of a hybrid between an 8 and a 10, where he can contribute in so many different ways. He can be in position to cover defensively, but he's also high enough up the pitch that he can play the dagger ball, or he can fly into the box for a header and be a target if needed to. It's probably more fluid than like just a rigid, like you play here and that's it. Because I think sometimes maybe I don't know if many people are doing this, but like this idea of that like he has to play a more rigid role is a bit exaggerated in some ways, because it might not be the best for him or the team. Because players who are so talented at moving between the lines and showing and being an outlet and being creative and understanding where to be on the pitch, you might as well make use of that trait. Isco was like that, right? The genius of Isco in like 2016, 2017 was he just was exactly where the team needed him, on the left, on the right, and all of a sudden everyone had someone to pass to. He made everyone's life easier. I kind of see Jude in that role too, but I don't know how Xavi sees it because it's still so early. You know, that's another one like I'm looking forward to for Charlotte on Sunday.
Having Casemiro, Kroos, Modric had a very defined role for each, and everything worked perfectly. That last year it was like a midfield with no roles.
Yes.
And we could only do what they're supposed to do. I mean,
Yes, 100%, 100%. Yeah, it was very clear to see on the field. Like you saw it. Like there was just confusion. I think it didn't seem clear, and I think the players felt really frustrated about that. Like you could see in the body language. Like how many times did Bellingham just look so frustrated, like looking at Ancelotti, like what's going, like you could see it in the body language. I think there was confusion in the roles. I think there was confusion like where players need to be in the build-up phase. And I think defensively it was just so erratic as well, because when you're not in position to attack properly, you're also by nature not in position to defend properly. It's this season technically, yeah.
what happened? I mean, like the guy has all the experience in the world, has pretty knowledgeable staff. I mean, how does that happen to them for the whole season?
I think it's the answer to that question is you'd have to make a list of like 10 different things that all contributed and piled on. One is that he lost Tony Cruz, who was, by all accounts, a coach on the field as well. He was a supreme organizer and so intelligent at getting the team forward. He lost Carvajal. Carvajal was a spiritual leader. He was arguably the best right back in the world before he got injured at this age. He was a Ballon d'Or level player, literally. That was a big one. Obviously, losing Militao again. I think the form of Vinny didn't help. Let put it this way. I think to start the season, he had Vinny in form and then Mbappe struggling mentally and physically. And then Mbappe found himself and then Vinny struggled. And then I think the two of them never hit form at the same time. And so all of a sudden, you guys can just close your eyes and picture this, right? How many times did we see a Real Madrid like transition 3-on-1 attack, 4-on-2 attack, and it just didn't go anywhere? And it was like shocking to see, because like if you could pick 3 players to run a transition attack, it's Vinny and Mbappe and Jude or Rodrigo, and it just wasn't as efficient. I think Carlo also, when things are not going well, Carlo really tightens his circle of trust. And I think that actually worked against him in this particular case. And the one I meant to say at the beginning of this list was that I think after a certain amount of time, even the greatest of leaders don't have the same voice as they once had. And I think that's also part of it. Um, Sometimes each era, I think, needs not every era. You can't copy and paste the same methodology for every era. Every era of Real Madrid will require something different. So, Mourinho is exactly what we needed when he came in. Ancelotti was exactly what we needed after Mourinho to like calm everybody down after the Mourinho era. And then Benitez is not what we needed. But then Zidane was exactly what we needed at the time. We got lucky with that one. And then Ancelotti was exactly what we needed when he came back. And I think it was just time that, we probably need a new direction now. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm here all night. So,
The way I look at it, like this is I'm so convinced that Andy has better players and Barcelona has better squad. I mean, it's kind of the question is, do you agree with me on this that we have the much better squad?
yes.
Like Barcelona, like their automatisms or whatever you want, they're most defined and by what they're doing. Pedri in a state of grace. I don't think that Pedri is that. I mean, he's good, but I don't know. Maybe I'm, my Madridista, but I don't think that he's so great. That they played so well, and it was so hard to do anything against them. And so frustrated that we couldn't figure out how to break that freaking, you know,
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you, but I think it's not so much a Barcelona issue to me. It's more that Real Madrid. I agree with you about the talent in the squad. They should not have been playing as badly as they did with that team. Barcelona are the team that exploited us the worst. But I forget the exact list, but I think it was 10 teams in La Liga took points off of us this season. Not just Barcelona. In the span of like a week, we had more losses than the entire previous season. And we were losing to everyone, not just Barca. The worst Milan we've seen in years destroyed us. But it was even teams like Valencia, Celta, Liverpool, Lille. Like I'm blanking, but there was a bunch of teams in La Liga who took points off of us. But I agree with you. Like if there's any team that should exploit that high line of Barca's, it's us. And we weren't able to do it. And we went into every Clasico almost like getting worse with each Clasico with less solutions. It got a little bit better in, Copa del Rey final second half. But I think you see certain teams and what they did against Barca, namely Inter. Yeah, I'm looking at Real Sociedad. When we lost 4-0 against Barca in the Bernabeu, the whole thing was like, wow, Barca's offside trap, offside trap. The next week, Real Sociedad destroyed that offside trap. If you know how to time your runs, you know how to time your passes, you should be getting 5 breakaways against these guys a game. And this is what I'm actually interested about Barca. Now that everybody has seen 1 year of Hansi Flick ball, how will they adjust to it? And will there be a slump with Barca next year? It's on the table to me because I think the premise of what you're saying is correct. I mean, when the talent level, it didn't match up with that much talent that the Real Madrid were playing the way they were playing. Yeah. If it's a long question, I would ask you to come here. You can take your time, but I just for the YouTube people.
When you were talking, quiet leadership came to my mind. And Carlos' philosophy is kind of like you said, to trust a small circle of players, and eventually they'll have like that moment of breakthrough. So like Rodrigo, I thought it was really telling that the second half, like you just said right now, when Real Madrid shifted at that second half of the Clásico, of the last Clásico, when Rodrigo when Carlo Ancelotti took Rodrigo off. So it's
It was Goulet, right? In the not the Copa del Rey final then.
he took off Rodrigo and he kind of switched the team around. And that's, I mean, I saw a different Madrid at that point, but it was kind of too little too late. So I was just to kind of piggyback off of that. I think that I'm curious to see what Real Madrid is under a different small circuit, or where there is no small circuit. That trust.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I think that's what I'm excited to see as well. And for everybody overreacting over this game on Wednesday, there's a lot of things to be excited about. There truly is. And we're going to see some of these things, I think, over the next few games, I hope. Well, I think we'll see progress, even if it's baby steps. Xabi Alonso said before the first game that the goal is by the end of the tournament will be better than the way we started it, right? And we're in phase 1, and hopefully the team will improve. Orlando, and then we'll go here.
You probably answered this in past podcasts, but and he had a great season. Who I'm talking about is Kylian Mbappe, but I also know there has to be some psychological effect of PSG winning the Champions League. I know we can rag on them a little bit, them losing to Botafogo recently, but the way that PSG played, the way that Luis Enrique coached, I mean, are there lessons to be learned from there? How similar are Luis Enrique to potentially Xabi Alonso? Are they similar stylistically in some ways and things like that? And what do you think that does to Kylian?
Yeah, this question actually came up a lot after PSG won the Champions League, because this idea like, oh, how could it be that Mbappe leaves PSG and they finally win the Champions League when he leaves, and then he comes to the Champions League winner and they fall off a cliff? Like, how does this make sense? And what I will say to that can only be proven with time, because it sounds a bit woo-woo and making excuses the way I'm going to say it now, but it's a bit of a coincidence. If you look at PSG in the entire Mbappe era, he did his part. He was scoring in the big games. I mean, I think you could argue in that Champions League final against Bayern, he missed a couple chances, fine. But he was scoring the goals. He was impossible to defend. PSG didn't have a good midfield until last season. That was like the first time they actually had a midfield spine. They didn't have it before that. The year we knocked PSG out in that famous year, I've never been more terrified of an opposing player in my life. Like, every time he got the ball on the wing versus Carvajal, I had to look away. Like, I was actually scared. Like, it was incredible what level he was at. And then you factor in what happened, like Messi missed that penalty in the first leg, and the whole team just collapsed and hung their heads. A lot of that is not on Mbappe. Last year, he scored 44 goals, and I don't even think he was at his best. I'm talking about the PSG last season, right? He scored 44 goals, if I'm not mistaken. It was his best goal-scoring year, even though he wasn't at his best. This year, he joined a Real Madrid team that had a bunch of ACL injuries. It was the best Barca team in the post-Messi era. Vinny's out of form. Jude's struggling to find his form. He's all over the place. I mean, like, there were probably like 3-4 players you could say had a good season. And like, it's Valverde, it's Mbappe. Blurt them out. Raul Asensio, Courtois. Yeah. That's why I kind of want to. But he had his good moments. He had his shaky moments. So Ceballos had a good month. Let's be polite. Yeah, like, I think it probably peaked Manchester City's second leg, the 3-0. That was probably like the only time all season we felt good. And we never saw that team again because Ceballos got injured. Ceballos was a big part of that team. Valverde was playing right back. After that, Ceballos got injured and Vasquez took over the right back position pretty much full time. And then when Ceballos returned, he wasn't good.
saying he didn't play. Do you think? I mean, what do you see his role this year as?
He didn't play. I saw him warming up. I don't know why. That's it. Yeah, yeah. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I mean, theoretically, he fits that profile of someone who can progress the ball. I think for that reason, it would make sense he gets some playing time. Another great press conference question. What do you see Danny Ceballos' role? I mean, the funny thing is, like, I have all this. No, I have. No, I'm gonna ask another Mbappe question just to piss people off. No, but I mean, I have all these questions that you guys have. I have them too. That's why I struggle answering them as well, because I have the same questions myself. You know, I'm really curious to see it. Yes. Oh yeah.
Off the pitch, but what do you think is going to happen when Florentino leaves, and how close do you think we are to that? Because PSG, Manchester City, they're not going to stop investing. Like our hold as the biggest club in the world is how much of that hinges on Florentino as our leader.
Yeah, I'm pretty worried about it actually. If I had to guess, I think he's gotten he just got reelected, right? So that's another 4 years. I think it's a long time, 4 years. I mean, 78. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say this is his last run, but I would say maximum one more after that, maximum. I also think I'm worried about the successor. We had really bad experiences with Ramon Calderon. Um, not the cleanest president. The obviously, as you guys know, just as well as I do, that the pool of options is extremely small. You have to basically be born a Real Madrid socio and be filthy rich. I mean, Lucas and I were talking about this. Like, kind of would love to see Rafa Nadal take it. I mean, to me, like part of the prerequisites would be like you need to be a good businessman. You need to be your PR needs to be really clean. You need to be a guy with dignity. You have to be not corrupt. You have to really care about the club. I think Nadal has all those traits, but I don't know. You know, I really don't know. The other name that's been floated around is Manolo Sanchez. He fits the requirements. You know, socio, businessman. You know, former player, obviously, but I'm worried about it. I think a lot of um, a lot of people gave Florentino a lot of criticism in the past year, you know, because the team wasn't playing well. He didn't sign defenders. And I just thought, you know, like we've been signing players every year, nonstop. We're trying to move to this model where we don't just sign people for the sake of it. We try to sign the players we really like that fit the team. We scout them. This is the guy we want. We believe in him. We're going all in on this guy. Before, it really wasn't like that. Even under the Florentino era, it was sign, sign, sign. It didn't make sense. Why are we bringing Antonio Casano? Why are we bringing Michael Owen and selling Morientes? Like, why are we, you know, you guys know it's like a big list, okay? Why are we selling Fernando Redondo? Like, there's like riots outside. And like, we just did a lot of random things that didn't make sense from a sporting perspective. And I think in the Florentino's second era, we've done way better at fixing those mistakes. And if you do the entire cost benefit analysis of Florentino Perez, it's unbelievably positive. Like the way he navigated the pandemic, it was the only club who turned a profit. He didn't have a negative, he wasn't in the red during the pandemic. Like no other president's doing that. I'm sorry. Like the guy was like, just like, we need to make sure this club is in a healthy financial state. And he did it about as smart as you can do it. So what's that? No levers, no mortgaging your future financially. I mean, look, it's not perfect. I mean, the Super League thing has been a disaster. The stadium has its issues. It's not perfect, but But to have that kind of leadership to navigate the last few years, I mean, it's, to have that kind of competency and business savoir and the connections. And look, he's a powerful guy, obviously. But you just hope that the next guy who comes in has the same vision. The guy who wanted to bring in, yeah.
Down in the last second, but he was about like radical changes, bringing Klopp, the philosophy, Saxena, and all of that. I think that if you go, I think if you go that way, I think that could be pretty disastrous because Real Madrid in general actually really does well with continuity. So if you see the last 10 years, we have bought a lot of players, but we've not really changed the philosophy of who we buy. It really matters who we buy, especially to the midfield and attack. Defense, it's still we sometimes bring in players from Castilla or we buy lower in signings. But for the midfield and attack, we really go for the best out there. And even if we have to wait for like 5 years for Kylian Mbappe or like 2 years for Jude Bellingham, we just do it. And even if we have to go through one season of not having anyone in that position, we just still do it.
Right.
I think the next person could be a little bit more impulsive and buy the next best option or the third best option, and that could actually affect how we go forward. I think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, look, and you look around, how many? It's really the luck of the draw. Like just look around at ownerships in football. The Americans that took over Chelsea just went in and bought every single player under the sun, like 9-year contracts. It's ridiculous what they're doing. You look at what the Valencia situation, it's horrific. Like imagine being a Valencia fan, and thank God we're not. But imagine, like, this is a big team in Spain, and the owner just pretty much ran that club into the ground and has destroyed them. And hopefully, and look, this is different because those are private owners. Real Madrid is not going to be in that situation, hopefully, ever in our lifetime. So the model right now makes sense because it's owned by the socios. So I just think like there's so much depending on who the owner is and the guy who's making the decisions. It could go either north or south, and you just hopefully you have a good owner. I also think in Real Madrid's case is interesting because there's a whole like some people have like a sporting director and we don't, and I think it's kind of cool the way we have it set up where like the brain trust is basically a body of like 4 or 5 people between Florentino and Jose Angel Sanchez and Juni Calafat, and then the coach obviously, and Santiago Solari is pretty involved in that as well now. And so I kind of like the way it's being operated right now, and I don't know how that would change after Florentino. Yeah.
You don't see us turning into a public company.
I don't think. I hope not. I don't think. there was talk of moving to like a Bundesliga model, I think, which would 50+1, where you would retain the decision making and control, but maybe you get some financial help outside.
I mean, if they did that, the valuation right now is super high. Having a bad year economically and $1.2 billion. So if we sell or they sell, I'm not the social, but 40% of the club, when that's the Lakers were $10 billion. I mean, we would be in the same ballpark. So $4 billion in the bank.
It would be immediate too. The amount of people who would rush in for that to be part of Real Madrid. I mean, I look. You have to evolve eventually, I think, and maybe that's the way to go because in the end, it's going to be hard to compete with the outside money that's coming in. The PSGs, the cities, the Newcastles, yeah. And of course, I mean, part of that is difficult to do in Spain in general. Like you think about Malaga and Almeria, who are, the Malaga situation, they start off spending. La Liga has such strict salary cap rules that you cannot spend money you don't have. So you cannot spend, outside money. Are you guys taking off? We got to take a group picture before do you guys have time for a group picture? Let's take a quick group picture. I think we're going to wrap it up on YouTube anyway. Whatever happens after this stays here. Thank you guys for tuning in live on YouTube. We'll be back Sunday night after the game in Charlotte. Actually, we'll do something Saturday night after the training session. Say bye to everybody on YouTube.